Script.md The Trickster God. Format: same story. Target: 50 to 60 minutes. 12,000-14,000 words. Every religion has a god of war. Every religion has a god of death. Every religion has a god of love. But there is one God that appears in every mythology on earth, and he is none of those things. He is the liar, the cheat, the shapeshifter, the one who breaks every rule, steals every treasure, tricks every god, and somehow, impossibly, makes the world a better place by doing it. He is the reason humans have fire. He is the reason stories exist. He is the reason spiders weave webs and why the sun moves across the sky. He invented music. He invented the alphabet. He invented lying, and then convinced everyone that lying was sometimes the only way to tell the truth. The Norse called him Loki, the god who could become a woman, a salmon, a fly, a mare. He was Odin's blood brother and the father of monsters. He once cut off the golden hair of Thor's wife as a joke, and then talked his way out of being killed by commissioning the dwarves to forge the most powerful weapons in the universe, including Thor's hammer. The Greeks called him Hermes, the messenger god, born at dawn, who by noon had invented the lyre, stolen Apollo's entire herd of sacred cattle, and lied about it to Zeus's face. He was a baby. He did this as a newborn infant, on his first day alive. West Africa called him Anansi, a spider, small and weak, who defeated every larger, stronger, deadlier creature in the world through wit alone. He tricked the python, the leopard, the hornet, and death itself. He won the right to own every story ever told. Every time you hear a story, any story, you are hearing one of Anansi's possessions. The Native Americans called him Coyote, the wanderer, the fool, the survivor. He stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans. He rearranged the stars in the sky because the careful pattern bored him. He died 100 times and came back every time, because the universe needs someone who refuses to follow the rules. China called him Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, born from a stone egg on a mountaintop, who taught himself martial arts, declared himself equal to heaven, ate the peaches of immortality, erased his name from the book of death, defeated 100,000 celestial soldiers, and was so dangerous that the Buddha himself had to trap him under a mountain for 500 years. And the Yoruba of Nigeria called him Eshu, the divine messenger who stands at every crossroads, who carries prayers from humans to gods but changes the words along the way, who starts wars between best friends for entertainment, and who is worshipped as the most important god in the pantheon, because without chaos, the universe would stop moving. 6 civilizations, for continents, languages that share nothing, and every single one created the same character. Not the hero, not the king, not the warrior, but the trickster, the liar who tells the truth, the thief who gives gifts, the fool who is the wisest of all. Tonight we meet every trickster god ever imagined, and we ask the question that none of their victims ever thought to ask. Why does every religion on earth need a god who cheats? Scandinavia, the prose Edda and the poetic Edda, the primary sources of Norse mythology, compiled in 13th century Iceland from oral traditions centuries older. And in these texts, among the gods of war and wisdom and thunder, there is one figure who does not fit, who was never meant to fit, who exists specifically because fitting is the one thing the universe cannot afford. Loki, son of the giant Farbati and the goddess Laufey, not one of the Aesir by birth, he is a giant, the enemy race, adopted into the family of gods through a blood oath with Odin, the king of the gods and the prince of chaos, bound by blood, inseparable and irreconcilable. Loki is not evil, not yet, not in the early myths. He is something more dangerous than evil. He is unpredictable. The prose Edda describes him. Loki is pleasing and handsome in appearance, evil in character, very capricious in behavior. He surpassed other men in the quality of cunning, and had stratagems for every purpose. He would always bring the gods into great difficulties and then get them out again by guile. Consider the incident of Sif's hair. Thor's wife, Sif, had hair made of literal gold. Not yellow, not blonde, but actual golden metal that grew from her head like living thread, the most beautiful hair in all the 9 worlds. And one night, for no reason that any surviving text explains, perhaps boredom, perhaps spite, perhaps the sheer intoxicating pleasure of doing something terrible, Loki crept into her bedroom while she slept and cut it all off. Thor predictably wanted to kill him. Loki predictably talked his way out of it. He went to the dwarves, the master craftsmen of the Norse cosmos, who lived beneath the earth and could forge anything from anything, and he commissioned them to make new hair for Sif. Hair of real gold, finer than spider silk, that would grow from her head as if it were natural. But Loki, being Loki, could not resist turning a crisis into an opportunity. While the dwarves were already working, he goaded them into a wager. He bet his own head, literally his head on his neck, that they could not forge 3 treasures finer than any that had ever existed. The dwarves, insulted and eager, accepted, and from their forges came 3 objects that would define Norse mythology forever. Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, the weapon that could level mountains and always return to the thrower's hand. Gungnir, Odin's spear, which never missed its target. And Draupnir, a golden ring that dripped 8 new gold rings every 9th night, an infinite source of wealth. Loki lost the bet. The dwarves demanded his head. And Loki, in the most perfectly Loki moment in all of Norse mythology, argued that while he had bet his head, he had not bet his neck, and the dwarves could not take the head without cutting the neck, which was not part of the deal. The dwarves, furious and outwitted, sewed his mouth shut with leather cord instead. But the myths only get stranger. When the gods needed a wall built around Asgard, they hired a giant builder who brought with him a magical stallion named Svalfari. The horse worked so fast that the gods panicked. They had promised the builder the sun, the moon, and the goddess Freya as payment, but only if he finished on time. They assumed he would fail. He was about to succeed. The gods turned to Loki. Fix this. And Loki, in a solution that no one asked for and no one expected, transformed himself into a mare, a female horse. He seduced the stallion. The stallion chased him into the forest, abandoning the builder, who missed his deadline. Months later, Loki returned to Asgard leading an 8-legged foal, Sleipnir, the fastest horse in the 9 worlds, who became Odin's personal mount. Loki is the father of the wolf Fenrir, who will swallow the sun at the end of the world. Loki is the father of Jormungandr, the world serpent that encircles the earth. Loki is the father of Hel, the half-dead goddess who rules the underworld. And Loki is the mother of Sleipnir. The trickster does not merely cross boundaries. He destroys the concept of boundaries. Male and female, god and giant, creator and destroyer, parent and child. Loki is all of them and none of them, and the Norse needed him to be all of them and none of them, because without him, the universe would be a machine that runs perfectly and produces nothing. And in the end, Loki goes too far. He engineers the death of Baldur, the most beloved god, the god of light and beauty and goodness. At Baldur's funeral feast, Loki arrives uninvited and mocks every god present, revealing their secrets, their affairs, their cowardices. The gods capture him, bind him in a cave with a serpent dripping venom onto his face for eternity, until Ragnarok, when he will break free and lead the armies of chaos against the gods in the final battle that destroys the world. The trickster who saved the gods 100 times will be the one who destroys them. That is not a contradiction. That is the point. Greece, Mount Cyllene, Arcadia, a cave on a mountainside. And inside that cave, in the middle of the night, a baby was born who would commit the most audacious crime in the history of the gods before he was 12 hours old. Hermes, son of Zeus and the nymph Maia, Born at dawn in a cave, wrapped in swaddling clothes, placed in a winnowing basket as a cradle. And by noon, according to the Homeric hymn to Hermes, composed around the 7th century BCE, the infant had already climbed out of his cradle, walked out of the cave, invented a musical instrument, and stolen 50 sacred cattle from the god Apollo. The Homeric hymn describes it with barely contained delight. The newborn Hermes found a tortoise outside the cave, killed it, hollowed out its shell, strung it with cowgut strings, and invented the lyre, the instrument that would become the symbol of Greek music, poetry, and civilization. He invented it accidentally before lunch on the day he was born. Then he walked to Pieria, a distance of several hundred miles, which apparently posed no difficulty for a divine infant, and stole 50 of Apollo's sacred cattle. He drove them backward so their hoofprints pointed in the wrong direction. He wore sandals made of woven branches, which left no recognizable tracks. He sacrificed 2 of the cattle, dividing the meat into 12 portions for the 12 Olympian gods, implicitly including himself among the gods before anyone had recognized his divinity. Then he went home, climbed back into his cradle, and pretended to be asleep. Apollo, the god of prophecy, the god of truth, the god who sees everything, could not find his cattle. He searched the entire world. Finally, he tracked the crime to Maya's cave, where he found the newborn Hermes lying in his cradle, wrapped in blankets, looking innocent. Apollo accused the baby. The baby denied it. The baby said, and this is a direct quote from the Homeric hymn, "I was born yesterday. My feet are soft. The ground is rough. But if you wish, I will swear a great oath by my father's head that I am not guilty, and that I have not seen anyone else steal your cattle." He was lying. He knew he was lying. Apollo knew he was lying, and they both went to Zeus to settle the matter. Zeus, king of the gods, looked at his newborn son, still wrapped in baby clothes, still pretending to be helpless, and laughed. Zeus laughed at the audacity of it. The Homeric hymn says Zeus laughed out loud to see his scheming child deny his guilt so well and so cleverly. The king of the gods was charmed by the lie. The liar was so good at lying that even the god of truth admired him. Hermes was not punished. Instead, he played the lyre for Apollo, the instrument he had invented that morning. And Apollo was so enchanted by the music that he traded his entire herd of cattle for the lyre. The thief sold the stolen goods back to the victim and received the victim's gratitude in return. This is the foundational myth of Hermes, the god of commerce, communication, travelers, thieves, and translators. The god who stands at every boundary and makes exchange possible. The Greeks placed stone pillars called Hermes at every crossroads in Greece, 4-sided pillars with a head of Hermes on top. Hermes was the god of the threshold, the god of the space between. Between gods and humans, he was the messenger. Between the living and the dead, he was the psychopomp, the guide of souls to the underworld. Between truth and lies, he was the interpreter, the one who understood that communication always involves translation, and translation always involves a kind of creative deception. He was the patron god of merchants and thieves because the Greeks understood something that most civilizations refuse to admit. The skills are the same: persuasion, timing, the ability to see what someone wants and offer it to them at the exact moment they are most willing to pay. The difference between a merchant and a thief is not talent, it is permission. West Africa. The Ashanti people of Ghana, one of the most powerful kingdoms in pre-colonial Africa. Builders of a civilization that traded gold across the Sahara and created a legal system that European colonizers described as more sophisticated than their own. And at the center of their mythology. Not a warrior god, not a thunder god, not a sun god, a spider. Anansi, sometimes spelled Anance. A small, clever spider who walks upright, talks like a man, and has never won a fight in his life, because he has never needed to. Anansi does not fight. Anansi thinks. And in a world of powerful gods and dangerous beasts, thinking is the most dangerous weapon of all. The central Anansi myth, the one from which all other Anansi stories flow, begins with a question. Anansi goes to Niam, the sky god, the supreme being, and says, "I want to buy all the stories in the world. Every story that has ever been told or ever will be told. I want them to be mine." Niam laughed. He set a price that he believed was impossible. Anansi must capture and bring to him 4 of the most dangerous creatures in the world. Onini the python, a serpent so long that no rope could bind him. Maboro the hornet swarm, 10,000 stinging insects that attacked as one. Osibo the leopard, the deadliest predator in the forest. And Moesha the fairy, an invisible spirit that no one had ever caught. Anansi caught all 4. Not through strength, he was a spider. Through intelligence. He tricked the python into lying next to a long stick to see who was longer, and tied him to it while he was distracted. He trapped the hornets by pretending it was raining, pouring water over their nest while holding a calabash above them and saying, "Quick, get inside where it's dry," then sealing them in. He dug a pit for the leopard and offered to help him climb out with a web rope, then webbed him up. And he captured the fairy with a tar baby, a doll covered in sticky sap, which the fairy punched in anger and could not pull free. Anansi brought all 4 to Niam. The sky god was astonished. He handed over all the stories in the world. From that day forward, every story told anywhere on earth became an Anansi story, Anansism in the Ashanti language. Every fairy tale, every legend, every myth, every lie told around a fire, all of them belong to the spider. When you tell a story, you are using something that Anansi bought with cleverness. When the Ashanti were enslaved and brought to the Americas, they carried Anansi with them. The spider traveled across the Atlantic in the memories of stolen people, surviving the Middle Passage in whisper. Anansi is not strong. Anansi is not beautiful. Anansi is not powerful. Anansi is smart. And in a world where the strong eat the weak, being smart is the most subversive act possible. Anansi is the god of the enslaved, the underdog, the overlooked. He proves that the smallest creature in the room can own everything in it, including the story you are hearing right now. North America. Not one tribe but hundreds, the Navajo, the Crow, the Nez Perce, the Maidu, the Caddo, the Blackfoot, and dozens more, spread across a continent, speaking unrelated languages, practicing different religions, living in different climates. And yet, the same character, the same trickster, the same coyote. Coyote, sometimes a god, sometimes an animal, sometimes both at once. Sometimes the creator of the world, sometimes the fool who nearly destroys it. He has no fixed form, no fixed morality, no fixed story. He is the most contradictory figure in all of world mythology, and perhaps, for that exact reason, the most honest. In the Crow tradition, Coyote is Old Man Coyote, a creator god who shaped the world from mud, made the rivers and mountains, created humans from clay and breathed life into them. He is wise, powerful, deliberate. He knows what he is doing. In the Maidu tradition, Coyote helps the creator god Kotoyamp arrange the stars in the sky. But Coyote gets bored. The careful, beautiful patterns are taking too long. So he grabs a handful of stars and flings them across the sky in a random scatter. That scatter is the Milky Way. The most beautiful thing in the night sky exists because Coyote got impatient. In nearly every version across every tribe, Coyote steals fire. The details change. Sometimes he steals it from fire beings on a mountaintop, sometimes from spirits in a burning forest, sometimes from the gods themselves. But the structure is always the same. Fire exists, it belongs to someone powerful. Humans are cold and hungry in the dark, and Coyote steals it for them. Not because he is noble, not because he is a hero, because he wanted to see what would happen.
Coyote also dies.
Repeatedly. In some myths, he is killed by his own curiosity, walking into danger he was warned about, touching things he was told not to touch, eating food that was obviously poisoned. He dies from greed, from lust, from stupidity, from bad luck. And every time he comes back, he reconstitutes himself from bones, or wakes up the next morning as if nothing happened, or simply appears in the next story with no explanation. The Navajo call him Mai-ai, and they tell his stories only in winter, because Coyote stories carry power, and power must be handled carefully. Coyote is sacred and profane simultaneously. He is the cautionary tale, don't be like Coyote, and the aspiration, survive like Coyote. He is the worst example and the best example in the same breath. What makes Coyote unique among tricksters is his failure rate. Loki succeeds through cleverness. Hermes succeeds through charm. Anansi succeeds through planning. Coyote fails. Constantly, spectacularly, humiliatingly. He reaches for the reflection of a berry in the water and drowns. He challenges a rock to a race and loses. He tries to fly by tying feathers to his arms and crashes into a canyon. But he survives. Every single time. Coyote is not the god of winning, he is the god of not dying. He is the god of getting back up. He is the proof that you do not need to be smart or strong or beautiful or right. You just need to keep going. The desert will kill everything except the coyote, and that is why the coyote is God. China, the 16th century. Wu Chengyan writes Journey to the West, one of the 4 great classical novels of Chinese literature, a 2,000-page epic that follows a Buddhist monk's pilgrimage to India. But nobody reads it for the monk. Everyone reads it for his bodyguard, a monkey. Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, born not from parents but from a stone egg on the top of the mountain of flowers and fruit. An egg that had absorbed the essence of heaven and earth for thousands of years until it cracked and a stone monkey leaped out, fully formed, with golden eyes that shot beams of light so bright they alarmed the Jade Emperor in heaven. From the moment of his birth, Sun Wukong refused to accept limits. He became king of the monkeys within days. He traveled the world to find a master who would teach him immortality, because dying was a rule, and Sun Wukong did not follow rules. He found a Taoist sage who taught him the 72 transformations, the ability to turn into anything. A pine tree, a temple, a mosquito, a beautiful woman, a mountain. He learned to somersault through the clouds, covering 108,000 li, roughly 54,000 kilometers, in a single leap. But Sun Wukong wanted more. He invaded the Dragon King's underwater palace and demanded the best weapon in the armory. The Dragon King, hoping to embarrass him, pointed to an enormous iron pillar that anchored the Milky Way to the ocean floor. The Rui Jingu Bang, weighing 17,550 pounds, impossible for any god or demon to lift. Sun Wukong picked it up, shrunk it to the size of a needle, and tucked it behind his ear. He had found his weapon, a staff that could grow from the size of a sewing needle to a pillar that could hold up the sky. Then he challenged heaven itself. He erased his name from the book of life and death, making himself officially immortal, beyond the reach of the underworld. The Jade Emperor, trying to pacify him, gave him a minor bureaucratic position in heaven, keeper of the horses. Sun Wukong discovered the title was a joke, the lowest rank in the celestial hierarchy. Enraged, he declared himself the great sage, equal of heaven, and dared anyone to disagree. Heaven sent armies, 100,000 celestial soldiers, led by the greatest warriors in the divine hierarchy. Sun Wukong defeated them all. He plucked hairs from his body, blew on them, and each hair became a clone of himself. Thousands of monkey kings, each as powerful as the original, each armed with a copy of the magic staff. The heavenly armies broke and fled. The Jade Emperor invited him to a banquet, a trap, a distraction. Sun Wukong discovered that the peaches of immortality, which the gods ate once every 6,000 years to maintain their divinity, were being served at a party to which he had not been invited. He ate them all, every single peach. Then he found Laozi's laboratory, where the pills of immortality were stored, and ate those too. Then he drank all the imperial wine. He was now immortal several times over, indestructible and very, very drunk. Nothing could stop him. Not the armies, not the gods, not heaven itself. Finally, the Jade Emperor called upon the Buddha, the highest power in the cosmological hierarchy, to intervene. The Buddha appeared and made Sun Wukong a bet. If the monkey could somersault out of the Buddha's palm, he would be given heaven. Sun Wukong laughed, leaped into the clouds, traveled to what he believed was the edge of the universe, saw 5 great pillars, wrote his name on one as proof, urinated on another for good measure, and somersaulted back. The Buddha opened his hand. The 5 pillars were his fingers. Sun Wukong had never left his palm. The monkey's name was written on the Buddha's middle finger. The entire universe, everything Sun Wukong had ever known, every cloud he had leaped through, every heaven he had stormed, existed inside the hand of a being so vast that the concept of escape was itself an illusion. The Buddha dropped a mountain on him. Sun Wukong remained trapped for 500 years. When he was finally released, to serve as bodyguard to the monk Xuanzang on the journey to retrieve Buddhist scriptures, Sun Wukong was changed. Not broken, not tamed, changed. He still fought, he still tricked, he still disobeyed, but he wore a golden headband that tightened when the monk recited a certain prayer, causing excruciating pain. A physical reminder that even the most powerful being in the universe must learn restraint. Journey to the West is not just a story about a monk's pilgrimage. It is a story about the taming of chaos, the process by which raw, uncontrolled, magnificent power learns to serve something greater than itself. Sun Wukong is the most powerful trickster in all of world mythology, and the only one who learns to submit. Not because he is defeated, because he grows. Nikkei, the Yoruba people, creators of one of the most complex and beautiful theological systems in human history, with over 400 orishas, divine spirits, governing every aspect of existence. And among all 400, one is more important than any other. Not the strongest, not the wisest, the most necessary. Eshu, also called Elegba, also called Legba in the Vodou traditions that the Yoruba faith would birth in the Caribbean and the American South. He is the divine messenger, the Orisha who stands between humans and gods, carrying prayers upward and answers downward. Without Eshu, no prayer reaches heaven. Without Eshu, no divination works. Without Eshu, the gods are deaf and the humans are mute. Every Yoruba ceremony begins with an offering to Eshu before any other god is invoked. He must be fed first. He must be acknowledged first. Because Eshu controls the crossroads, the literal and metaphorical point where paths meet, where choices are made, where fate branches. If you do not honor Eshu, your messages go astray. Your offerings reach the wrong god. Your life takes the wrong turn. But Eshu is also the trickster. The most famous Eshu story describes 2 farmers who are best friends. They work in adjacent fields, separated by a path. One day, Eshu walks down the path wearing a hat that is red on one side and blue on the other. The farmer on the left sees a man in a red hat. The farmer on the right sees a man in a blue hat. That evening, they argue. Did you see the man in the red hat? It was blue. The argument escalates. They fight. Their friendship is destroyed. Eshu reveals himself and says, "Both of you are right. Both of you are wrong. You fought because you each saw only one side of the truth. The hat had 2 colors. Reality has 2 sides. And the trickster's job is to remind you that your perspective is never complete, that the thing you are certain about is the thing you understand least." This is not cruelty. This is theology. The Yoruba understand something profound about the nature of reality. The universe is not stable. It does not run by itself. It requires constant maintenance, constant rebalancing, constant disruption, constant challenging of assumptions. A universe without a trickster is a universe that calcifies, that becomes rigid, that stops growing. Eshu is the divine maintenance worker. He breaks things so they can be rebuilt stronger. When the Yoruba were enslaved and brought to the Americas, Eshu traveled with them, just as Anansi traveled with the Ashanti. In Haiti, he became Papa Legba, the old man at the crossroads who must be invoked before any voodoo ceremony. In Cuba, he became Elegua, the child god who plays tricks and opens doors. In Brazil, he became Exu, the messenger between worlds. Every version of the African diaspora preserved the trickster at the crossroads, because every version understood, without the trickster, the road leads nowhere. Eshu is perhaps the most honest trickster of all, because the Yoruba never pretended he was anything other than what he is. He is chaos. He is disruption. He is the thing that makes you uncomfortable. And he is absolutely, indispensably necessary. Without Eshu, the universe is a closed system. And closed systems die. Let us build the blueprint. 6 tricksters. 6 civilizations. For continents. Languages that share no common ancestor. And every one of them created the same character, the same archetype with the same traits serving the same function. Element 1, Shapeshifting. The trickster has no fixed form. Loki becomes a woman, a horse, a fly, a salmon. Hermes disguises himself in 100 forms. Sun Wukong has 72 transformations. Coyote shifts between human and animal at will. Anansi is a spider who walks like a man. Eshu appears as a child, an old man, a woman, a shadow. The trickster refuses to be one thing because being one thing means being predictable, and predictability is death. Element 2, Boundary Crossing. The trickster exists at the threshold between gods and humans, between the living and the dead, between male and female, between order and chaos. Hermes carries messages between Olympus and Earth and guides souls to the underworld. Eshu stands at the crossroads. Loki is a giant among gods. Coyote is an animal who acts like a person. The trickster lives in the space between categories, in the gap where definitions break down. Element 3, Theft that creates. The trickster steals and the world gains. Hermes steals Apollo's cattle and invents music. Coyote steals fire and gives it to humans. Anansi steals all the stories from the sky god. Sun Wukong steals the peaches and pills of immortality. Loki's theft of Sif's hair produces Thor's hammer. In every case, the theft is the mechanism of creation. Something valuable moves from where it was hoarded to where it is needed. The trickster is the redistributor. Element 4, Humor. The trickster is funny. Always. Not accidentally funny. Deliberately, intentionally, cosmically funny. Zeus laughs at baby Hermes. The Norse gods laugh at Loki's escapades, until they don't. Coyote stories are told to make people laugh. Anansi is a comedy hero. Sun Wukong's rampage through heaven is played for laughs in every Chinese adaptation. The trickster uses humor as a weapon, because laughter breaks down hierarchy, and hierarchy is what the trickster exists to undermine. Element 5. Punishment and survival. The trickster always goes too far and always pays a price. Loki is bound with a serpent dripping venom on his face. Hermes is put on trial before Zeus. Coyote dies in almost every story. Sun Wukong is trapped under a mountain for 500 years. But the trickster always survives. Loki breaks free at Ragnarok. Hermes charms his way to freedom. Coyote comes back to life. Sun Wukong earns Buddhahood. The trickster can be punished but not destroyed, because the universe needs him. Element 6. Culture Bringer. The trickster gives humanity its most important gifts. Fire. stories, music, the alphabet, medicine, language itself. In mythology after mythology, the trickster is the one who steals the tools of civilization from the gods and delivers them to humans, not out of kindness, but out of the same anarchic impulse that drives everything else he does. The trickster does not love humanity. He just cannot resist the urge to take things from the powerful and give them to the powerless. He is the original rebel. 6 elements, 6 civilizations, 0 contact, the same shape-shifting, boundary-crossing, thieving, funny, unkillable culture bringer, invented independently on every inhabited continent, in every era of human history. The trickster is not a supporting character. He is the most universal character in world mythology. More common than the hero, more consistent than the mother goddess, more ancient than the dying and rising god. Every culture that has ever existed has produced a trickster. The question is why? Why does every civilization on Earth, separately, independently, without contact, create a god whose primary function is to break rules? Theory 1. The trickster is the child. Every human culture has children. Every culture watches children break rules, test limits, ask uncomfortable questions, say things that adults have agreed not to say. Children do not understand boundaries. They push against everyone until they find the ones that hold. The trickster is the divine child, the cosmic infant who treats the rules of the universe the way a toddler treats the rules of the house, as suggestions to be tested, not laws to be obeyed. Theory 2. The trickster is evolution. In biological terms, mutation is the trickster. Most mutations are harmful. Most of Coyote's plans fail. But occasionally, a mutation produces something extraordinary. A new adaptation, a new capability, a new species. Evolution needs error. It needs randomness. It needs the occasional catastrophic deviation from the plan. Without the trickster, without mutation, without error, without deviation, life would never change. The trickster is the biological engine of innovation. Theory 3. The trickster is the pressure valve. Every society has rules. Every society needs rules. But every society also needs a way to question those rules without destroying itself. The trickster provides a safe container for rule-breaking, a mythological space where disobedience can be explored, consequences can be examined, and hierarchies can be mocked without anyone actually getting overthrown. The trickster story lets you laugh at the king without being executed. It lets you imagine a world without rules so that you can appreciate the rules you have, or change the ones that no longer work. Theory 4. The trickster is creativity itself. Every creative act is a violation. Every new idea breaks an old pattern. Every invention steals from nature, recombines what existed into what didn't exist, and presents the theft as a gift. The artist is a trickster. The scientist is a trickster. The entrepreneur is a trickster. Creativity is, by definition, the refusal to accept things as they are, and the trickster is the god of that refusal. Theory 5. The universe requires chaos. This is the deepest theory and the one that the Yoruba, with their theology of Eshu, articulate most clearly. Order is not the default state of the universe. Order is a temporary arrangement, constantly under threat, constantly requiring maintenance. Without disruption, systems become rigid. Without challenges, structures become brittle. Without the occasional catastrophic failure, there is no adaptation, no growth, no evolution. The trickster is not the enemy of order. He is its immune system. He attacks the weak points so the strong points can be reinforced. He breaks what is fragile so that what survives is anti-fragile. Perhaps it was all of these. The child gave the personality. Evolution gave the function. The pressure valve gave the social purpose. Creativity gave the gift. And the deep structure of reality, the fact that the universe runs on the dynamic tension between order and chaos, between stability and disruption, between the rule and its exception, gave the necessity. What we know is this: for as long as humans have told stories in every language on every continent in every millennium, they have told stories about a being who breaks every rule, crosses every boundary, steals every treasure, and makes the world richer by doing it. He is the liar who tells the truth, the thief who gives gifts, the fool who is the wisest of all. He is Loki and Hermes and Anansi and Coyote and Sun Wukong and Eshu. He has 1,000 names and one purpose: to remind the universe that the most important rule is the one you are willing to break. Every religion told the same story. This one was laughing. Next time on Deja Myth, we burn. Every civilization tells the same story about a rebel who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans. Prometheus, Maui, Coyote, Anansi, Madarisvan, 6 continents, 6 thieves, 1 flame, and a punishment that always comes. The fire is next.